see.
Hang on. I found it.
Hi. There you go.
Okay, now I got to figure out how to get you back bigger. Let's see. There we go. Hi.
Nice. Hello, Carrie.
Hi, Layla.
Hi. Welcome to Crayonversations. I see you have a little fur buddy there behind you.
Yes, I always have little fur buddies, but he'll probably be going, ow, in and out of sight. It went down my back.
Nice.
So I'm so excited that you're doing this. I love the whole concept of grown-ups getting together and coloring while they chit-chat. I think that's awesome.
Yes.
So, and we both wore our headbands today. So like, I don't know if you know, but I got this one from our mutual friend, Sylvia.
Oh, yes, Nepsa, right?
Yeah, awesome. I have a whole bunch of Nessa's stuff.
Nice. I'm gonna have to have her as a guest on here. She's so cool.
Yeah, and have her show you how to do the wraps. I love mine. Like I have them in all different colors. I wear them all the time.
It looks so cute. Looks so cute.
I love them, and you can. Yeah. How did you forget your crown?
Oh goodness! Trying to rearrange this camera. I've got them right here. All right, so I've got my old school coloring paper.
Cool.
Yes, and I've got my lovely box of crayons that is purchased especially for Crayonversations.
I have this like little notepad thing, and then the set that you always wanted as a kid, right? Every color.
Deluxe.
I love these. Yes. So I'm pretty excited. I actually, I use them to do my calendars, right?
Yeah.
So I like. I'm old school on the calendar. I have to do pen and paper. I can't do the whole electronic thing. I want to see it.
I'm the same way. I put a lot of dates into my phone, but it doesn't really stick with me until I physically write it down, and I can actually go through the motion of writing it, and then it's like, oh, this is really, really important. It's not just like a text saying hello. It's like, hey, important, writing it down.
Right.
Can't delete it, right?
It's in my book.
Yeah.
I always tell people, if you're not in my book, it's not happening.
Yes, of course.
So what does your shirt say?
Nearly famous.
Oh, cute. Yes. I love this. What a great shirt for you. That's perfect.
It's backwards probably on here, but when I get done editing, I'll flip it so that it actually will make sense when it's because right now it's can you read it?
No, it's right. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, it's right.
Awesome. Okay. Because sometimes when I have my front facing camera, when I do Storytime Live, everything's flipped. And so then I have to go in and flip the video back so that when I'm reading the story, the words that I put up with the pictures actually make sense and it's not backwards. It's so weird. Yeah.
That is weird.
Yeah, but I think Zoom just kind of automatically makes it correct, which is nice. I did not know that.
Well, there's a thing in the beginning in your settings where you can choose mirrored or not mirrored.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm going to have to look into that.
He keeps disappearing and not disappearing in my background, but he's asleep. I can't get him in the... He'll sleep there the whole interview.
Aw. So, Carrie, you're like a Jackie of all trades. How would you... Okay, you're a writer. You make really nice things. You cook very well. You're a healer. How would you... If someone walked up to you and said, hey, what do you do? What would you say?
It depends on my audience, you know?
Okay.
Right? Because I do a lot of different things. And I think that really that's the way to be a successful creative, right? If you want to be a creative person and you want to do what you love and you want to make money at it, then you have to diversify. Like there's no way not to diversify. And creatives, right? You know this, we don't do well working for other people, so we have to work for ourselves. in order to do that, you have to diversify. So I have done, I write. I've written books, and I have some more books in the works. I did a radio show. I might do some podcast and blogging again next year. I'm thinking about it because people are, I think, still probably going to be home, whether we want to be or not.
Right.
And I do a lot of consulting work, public relations and conflict management consulting. And that's a lot of fun because you wouldn't think of that as creative work, but it really, in a lot of ways, is creative work because you get to do a lot of writing and you get to coach people on giving interviews and things like that. So it's a lot of fun.
Nice. That is cool. And that's why I'm glad to have you as a guest on here, because the last two people that we've had as guests have been creative people, and they do more than one thing within a creative field. So either they're a singer-songwriter or they write poetry as well. Or, they create art with recycled items like Marielle, and then she sings and writes songs and talks to people about the importance of seeds and growing and cultivating growth within our earth, so it's a really wide spectrum of people that I know, and I'm like, let's get them all together and Crayonversate. Why not? I think that'd be a cool idea.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
You and I met on the set of Randy to the Rescue.
Yep. Say yes to the dress.
Say yes to the dress. I have never had blisters on my feet before, like I had after several days of filming that show.
Yes.
Like I couldn't walk.
Well, see, I went into that show thinking the way it was explained to me that I was pretending to be a bride. And so I had this idea thinking, wait, am I acting like the main bride? Do I have to lie in front of millions of people? And then I saw these other women in uncomfortable heels, and I was like, oh, okay. It's not just.
We're all going to be uncomfortable.
All uncomfortable.
I did not show up to that prepared to run in 6-inch stilettos or whatever it was.
I had a description for it. No one told us about that.
Oh, I had the worst blisters ever. It was torture, that show. But I had the greatest stylist. I think it's so bizarre. I think about her all the time. Yeah. And I have a picture of she and I together. And she was just so kind and so sweet and so accommodating, because I'm very busty and they didn't have a dress that would fit me.
Right.
So she had to go get like the clips that hold the curtains up and clip the back of my dress together. Yeah. I mean, and she was just like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm like, really? Don't worry about it.
I remember she had really thick, curly, beautiful hair, and she wore all black.
She was
I remember her very well.
I want to say she was from New York.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Gotcha. Maybe New Jersey. I'm not sure. Somewhere out east, but she was just a lovely human being. There were just a lot of love.
Sorry, they're playing on the keyboard and they're picking opportune time to just turn up. So
I think you need a couple more cats. I can help you with that,
Oh goodness. But yeah, so I've known Carrie for well over, has it been over 10 years now?
Yeah, I think so. It's been a long time, because I think it could have been even longer than that, because I think I was so busty because I was still nursing, and my youngest turns 15 in January.
So this was 2012?
It's been a minute.
It's been a while. I was working as a teacher's aide that year before I started working at iHeart. So that's been a while. That's been a long time.
It's been a while. Yeah, because you did you got the job at iHeart right after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. We've been through it.
We really have. And I feel like when I go through some what I call major crises, you're one of the first people I contact, even back then. And like, even if it was something dealing with like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do with my life? Or, oh my goodness, how do I, resolve this issue? Or, you were always offering some sage advice.
But
And
I love that, right?
yeah,
My master's in conflict management, my bachelor's in the public relations and psychology stuff, right? I love that. I love that my friends come to me and we can brainstorm, what's a creative way to deal with this situation? Or is it
right.
really a big deal, right? Because I always tell people in 100 years, is that really going to matter? Because you're not going to be here in 100 years. So is it really going to make a difference in the grand scheme of things?
Mm, excellent point. And
You know,
yeah,
go ahead. I was just
I
going to
was
say,
thinking,
when we're kids, when
yeah.
we're kids, right? We think, oh man, life is going to be so much easier when I'm a grown up and
Oh
things are
my
going to get
gosh.
so much better and I'm not going to have to deal with these bullies and right, you talk about this in your one woman show. You talk about
Yeah.
like how what growing up was like for you.
Oh yeah. It
How
was
does how does that compare with what you're living now?
um, it's really interesting because I reflect on that a whole lot, because growing up, I was the youngest of three sisters from my mom's side, right? So I was the baby, I was the goofball around them, but in public, I was completely quiet, very shy, soft spoken, and that made me a target in school for being picked on. It was like, you're not going to speak up for
Mm.
yourself in this moment. Aha, I got you for the rest of the year. That's what it felt like. I was a blinking red light of being targeted. So from elementary school, I'd say maybe like fourth grade. Fourth grade, I remember getting picked on and bullied. And that was a tough year because my family was separating, and we had overcome a very traumatic event. And so it was, my mom was teaching at the school, and I was a fourth grader at the school, but she wasn't my teacher. And so I recall a little boy, he didn't like me for some reason. He picked up a paper fastener and broke it. And he said, "This is what I'm going to do to you." And as a
Oh,
fourth grader, I was like, wait, what? I didn't understand. So I told my mom, and my mom was so upset. She was like, she knew exactly who to talk to about it. And she's like, he cannot say that to my child. I don't care if it's just a paper fastener. Like, that's not acceptable. She's already, you know, this is a new school for her. That we're new to this. You know what I mean? Like, this has to be nipped in the
yeah.
butt. So even then, I was an easy target. But as an adult, I'm a lot more vocal on certain things. I'm more open with my creative voice, in my opinions and everything. And to this day, I still encounter bullying, believe it or not. And I'm in my 30s. I'm in my
Yeah.
30s. And it definitely can occur in the workplace. It can occur on social media, which I've experienced. Like, the whole idea of having a different opinion and people not being able to just scroll past it, but then they want to like dig into you and then like turn people against you, that kind of thing. uh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it is very bullying, unfortunately, is something that we still have to talk about, not just with kids, with adults as well. I think it's very
What's
important to talk about it.
fascinating about what's fascinating about your situation, it mirrors my situation a little bit too. And it bothers me more than any of the other bullying that occurs. It's woman on woman bullying. Instead of women having each other's back and building each other up, I am
Right.
targeted far more by women bullies than I am by
Me
man
too.
bullies.
Me too.
Now, right. And that's wrong because we should be building each other up. And women
Exactly.
are not doing that. And I'll tell you the one that bothered me the most. I wouldn't say it bothered me the most, but that I found the most interesting. There was a woman who sat in front of me at church and then would go home from church and write smack about me on social media. Now, doesn't your Bible say that you're not supposed to like do that to other Christians? And I see that a lot where it's not just women bullying each other, but it's women of the same religious convictions or of the same. I mean, I see it within the Black Lives Matter movement. Women bullying each other, and they're supposed to be fighting for the same cause. Like, stop fighting with each other. The world is hard enough.
Yeah.
Ladies need to stand up for each other, and you need to act like ladies, right? I mean, I'm not trying to be mean, but I have seen some women just waller in the mud, and it's like, knock it off. You know, when I was growing up, I was a mean little kid. I'm not going to lie. I wasn't the bully, right? But I was the person that always stood up to the bully, like, no. And then I'd push the bully or hit the bully.
Yeah.
With baseball bats and stuff. I mean, I was not a nice kid, okay? I'm just saying.
You're a Covington kid.
I was a Covington kid. I was not a nice kid. And my mom was always like, look, pretty isn't just about how you look, but pretty is about how you act too. And
right.
It just, to me, and I see these bullies, right? And they have this like conviction where their conviction outweighs their need to tell the truth. Like, they're going to twist it and they're going to lie and they're going to do whatever they have to do to try to make you look bad, when in reality, they're making themselves look bad.
Right.
But it's just so weird to me, because it seems to me like that takes a tremendous amount of energy. Now, how can you hate somebody so much for something that they wrote on Facebook or something that they did? Like, that doesn't even really affect your life, but you're just psycho. So you're out there just targeting people for no, and you see it on Facebook all the time, right? You see it in social media all the time. Where people are just totally off the hook.
Yeah.
And rarely do they ever want to. And it's not stuff they'd say to your face in person. I wouldn't say that stuff to your face in person. No.
It's keyboard warrior.
Everybody else. Now, the people who should be ashamed of themselves are the people who don't know you, and they just jump on in that whole social media arena like, well, if so-and-so says it, it must be true. So I'm just going to jump on that bandwagon and act a fool too. No, not okay.
I would say, like, in high, I had it rough. I was this new girl who was always kind of in dream world in my own little head, are you doing paint or marker?
I was animated and I made my pen explode. Yes, I was animated and I blew up my pen. See what
you're
happens?
Such an artist.
You get me all excited. You get me all excited and I make my pen just blow up. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was busy writing all over myself.
No, you're good. I was gonna say 8th grade was rough, because it was this question of if I was Black enough, and it was confusing because, I mean, growing up, I knew I was Black. I know I'm Black. You know what I mean? And but then they assumed because I liked a certain type of music, or that I didn't know a certain type of song they were listening to, or like they just would be like, oh, she thinks she's white, she thinks she's a white girl, blah blah blah. So it was just this hard feeling in my chest every day when I go to school, like, okay, how do I make myself be Blacker? Which sounds dumb now, but it's like, how do I, and I would fail epically at trying to meet this level. But then my mom would tell me, like, don't worry about that. You don't have to prove anything to them. Yeah, just be yourself, and so I would come home crying sometimes. And 7th grade, 8th grade, high school, I was I had friends and things, but I think I just more so sat with people that I thought were similar to me, but really weren't. I just needed, I didn't really fit in there.
Yeah.
College, I went to historically Black college my freshman year, and I made some really great friends, but then I also still got bullied there. For being an airhead, for being dingy, for being white. I tried to join.
Life is too hard.
It was hard.
Why are we attacking people instead of supporting them and building them up and being like, hey, Layla, you're being different is beautiful, right? Like, it's beautiful. Like, you have this beautiful soul. And somebody said to me once that people who do that, right? People who attack you and things, those people are jealous. You shine so bright when you come into a room that you start to dull the darkness and the negativity. And there are some people that can't handle that because they can only function in darkness and negativity. So anytime, I always look at it kind of like, I mean, I shouldn't say it like this, but it is sort of a compliment when people are mean to you because it means that you're doing something right, that you are shining so bright that you're standing in the way of that hatred and that darkness. Because let's admit it, like even people who start with the best of intentions and have a conviction about something can very easily be swayed to the dark side because their passion can turn into anger. You know, I believe there are only two emotions, love and fear, and everything springs from that. So if you're doing something in love, right, then you're going to shine really bright and you're going to walk on this really super positive path. But it's really easy for somebody to knock you off that path by threatening you and putting you into a place of fear. And out of fear is where anger comes from, and it's where darkness comes from, and it's where people, you know, will get crazy. So when I have crazy bullies, and Lord knows if you're watching our story in the news media, you know we got crazy bullies, right? You have these crazy bullies, but I'm like, man, what's at the root of this, right? What is at the root of this? A person to be that angry, you know, I've got assault charges on a woman right now. For a person to be that angry, they have to have some deep-seated something going on inside of them, some grief or some anger, or something that doesn't really even have anything to do with you maybe, but challenges their identity or their fear of change or whatever. You know, I was a super angry kid. Yeah, I was an angry kid. That's why I was fighting all the time. I didn't like anybody, right? I was angry. I was angry, man, because I lost both parents and 3 siblings before I was 9 years old, right? I was grieving. I didn't have any control over my life, but I was bigger than everybody else and you know, was in survival mode. You know, that's another thing that we never take into consideration when we have these conversations about bullying and things. You know, in order for somebody to get up there on Maslow's triangle, that hierarchy of needs, their basic needs have to be met, right? Their basic needs have to be met before they can self-actualize. So if you look back to those bullies, those kids that were mean to you when you were little, and even some of the women who have been so nasty to you on social media, do they have their basic needs met? And what are they afraid of that they feel like they have to lash out at you?
See, I don't know. But then I think about even women at work, because where I work currently, there's staff members that are more petty than others. And it doesn't matter what race they are, there's white, black, what have you. But it's like the idea of this petty womanhood, whatever color you are, but there's the stereotype of like, oh, you work around all women, it's gonna be petty, gossipy, this. And that's exactly what it is. Like, and so it's like, so because I come in as myself and I'm not maybe reacting the way you think I should to certain things, or I don't know a certain thing that you know already, or that you don't think that I know, you know, little things like that. You can pick up those vibes, and it's like we were saying earlier, women need to uplift each other, and it starts.
We gotta take care of each other. World's too hard.
Yeah, it's hard enough. It's so hard. But I think what you said about what they're missing, I mean, I think back to it, and maybe like in hindsight, when I think about like junior high, I think some of the girls that had problems with me had some issues, like familial issues, and I would hear stuff that they had gone through. You know, when they were being nice to me and being my friend, quote unquote, I would hear about certain things, and I'd be like, oh, okay. But then I was the target at school, you know.
But you were the target because you probably had what they wanted, right? I know there were things going on at home for you, right? Because I've seen your one woman stand-up show and you talk about that. But you weren't open about that. You weren't open about that with other kids, right? So they looked at you and they thought, look, Layla's so creative and Layla's so happy. And my life sucks. So I'm going to be mad at Layla for having a good life.
Oh, they made fun of me for having Payless shoes. The part in my hair was crooked, apparently, so they would examine the part in my hair. They said I looked like a sea creature. They told all the boys to say I was ugly. You know, just things. And I'm like, wow, thinking back, like, yeah, I could see how that would affect me. But now as an adult, I'm just like, oh, whatever. But as a 13-year-old who was already dealing with her own self-esteem issues and moving and moving and moving around and having some father issues and, you know, divorce and all that other stuff that I do discuss in my one woman show. Yeah, I was a pretty fragile junior high student that just kept to herself.
And thank goodness we didn't have social media, right? Because look at these kids now that we see who are killing themselves.
It's on steroids.
Because of stuff people have said on social media. So I have to tell you, you know, I had this incident here at my house where people were bullying me and saying stuff on social media because they were mad that we moved here and cleaned up a blighted property and took away their party spot and they don't like change and whatever other reason they had, right? I mean, it was just one made up reason after another for why they didn't like us. And then they started like spreading lies about us. Like, she pulled her gun on us and she's gonna shoot us. I'm like, look, if you ain't saying it from a Ouija board, I didn't pull my gun on you. Like, I'm not gonna pull my gun on you unless we have a serious, you know, something going down, and you know, you're not going to probably be telling people about it later, you know, just silly stuff, just lies that just made no sense and continue to make no sense. Okay.
Right.
But they spread that and other people latch onto that. And then other people, instead of fact checking, just assume, well, I read it in social media, it must be true. No, it's not true.
I've fallen victim to that too.
Sure you have. But what the problem is then they can, you know, I ignore that kind of stuff. And I'm like, look, that's high school petty nonsense. I'm not going to respond to that. I'm not going to. But then they up the ante and make false police reports and false government reports and try you know, luckily.
Or they contact your job. They contact your job and tell you you're not fit. Tell them that you're not fit to teach a certain race of children because of your
somebody did that to you. Contacted your job and said you can't teach Black kids. Like, what is that? You're like an incredible role model for any kid. And why, again, like, why are we attacking people over the color of their skin or their sex or their religion or whatever? Who cares? You know, your rights stop at the tip of my nose. If what I'm doing doesn't interfere with your rights, why do you care who I marry, who I'm sleeping with, what color I am? Like, life is too hard. Go to your corner and deal with your own shit, because the reality is you ain't be sweeping in front of my door until you swept in front of yours.
Right. Now,
the good news is everybody's got a cell phone these days. Where's your evidence? You know, people start saying things about you, Layla. You need to say, where's your evidence? Everybody's got a cell phone. Show me that evidence.
Right.
Can't just make stuff up and say it anymore, because we live in a world, you know, that's official.
That's true. Now, I was reading, Mariah Carey has a memoir out called The Meaning of Mariah. The Meaning of Mariah Carey. And she basically goes back to her childhood and explains, you know, a lot of the struggles that she went through, not only coming from like a broken home type of setting, but also coming from an interracial family, and how she was picked on and bullied throughout school. And there was a story she told where some girls invited her to upstate New York or somewhere really fancy, and she thought they were her friends, but they really invited her there to simply lock her into a room and call her a nigger and to harass her.
Terrible.
And so that was a part of her trauma growing up. Do you feel that, and this when she was growing up, I imagine, because she's in her late 40s, so this was probably like 70s, 80s, around that time. Do you feel that interracial children still get that type of bullying? in the year 2020?
Wow, that's a good question.
Like, is it more
Is that
acceptable now to be mixed, or are they still, do you feel that,
oh,
I mean,
so I don't feel like, and as you know, my genetics is very varied, and I grew up with people of all different races and cultures, um and what I have found is someone who has mixed genealogy. I I don't have a voice in the race conversation because I look white, so people assume that you have a certain kind of experience. Um, so you don't get to give a voice to either experience because you don't fit a, a black experience or a white experience. So let's talk about that for a minute, though, because genetically, most Americans are not one way or another. We aren't even talking about DNA. We're talking about the color of your skin. And this is where we get discrimination even within a race, right? Because you're not black enough, or, you know, you sound white, or like all kinds of crazy variations where people of the same race are discriminating against each other. Like, why are we doing that to each other? Why can't we just all be a part of the human race? Why can't we all just love each other? Why can't we all accept that everybody's experience is different? That one experience isn't more valid than another person's experience. But what it comes down to isn't whether the multiracial child has a voice. It's whether the multiracial child's voice matches the agenda of the person who's asking their opinion. Because
okay.
if right, you only get to say it if it matches the agenda of the person who's asking. Because and I call this the social media mentality, right? People no longer ask for your opinion because they really want to have a dialogue where they might learn something. They're asking for your opinion because they want you to validate their agenda. And that's why we just go in circles and don't move forward, because we're not having discussions that create new thoughts and new ideas and new solutions. And what an amazing world this would be. So we live in this incredible information technology world. What an incredible world this would be if we were using this ability to talk to people all over the world to truly understand and gain new insights. Like, it's this incredible opportunity, and we're missing it because we want to be heard over the rest of the noise instead of simply listening and learning.
And so, because when we think about like bullying within race, there's also that hovering cloud of like internal religion bullying.
Yeah.
That's something I've learned a lot about over the years, being Muslim, being raised Muslim, and being around I grew up around a lot of diverse environments, you know, because obviously
you went to a Christian school. You grew up in a Christian school.
I went to a Catholic school. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then, like, even within my experience of growing up Muslim, there's that kind of feeling where people they'll ask, you know, are you a convert? And I'm like, no, I was born Muslim. And so they'll be kind of confused and be like, well, did you convert? I'm like, no, I didn't. I was born Muslim. Or there'll be events where I'll go to and it'll be primarily like maybe Arab or Indian. And they'll want to kind of sit with themselves, and then they'll be just me. Just kind of like, but then I'm not saying all, but there's been circumstances where it has been like I'm the solo brown person that's like, and it's not in the mosque or anything, but maybe like at a party or something. But then there's been parties where there hasn't been that issue, but there's some little sects within. It's like, okay, well, we're going to hang out with our culture, and if you're not quite our culture, then I mean, I'll give you the greetings, but we're going to stay faced over this way, kind of, you know. I don't know if it's a comfort thing or what, but it's complex. It definitely is complex.
Well, I used to do the radio show African Village Buka. And so there were many, many times that I was not only the only white person in the room, but I was the only American in the room. And
Ah,
that is a real learning lesson, because you're the guest and you don't want to offend the host or do something that is culturally inappropriate because you've stepped into someone else's culture. And
right.
so I think, yeah, right. And I think that that's particularly difficult for Islam in the United States, and even for the African American culture, because Africans view Black people in the United States very differently.
I've been
Uh,
told that.
they do. It's really interesting, but native-born Muslims from who are African, and we're talking about a continent, right? It's a large continent, but I mean, that might be from Nigeria or Ethiopia versus being from somewhere in the Sudan or being from Oman, Jordan, right? That's all a different kind of culture versus the American culture, the American Muslim. And you're in the unique experience of having been born into Islam and not converted to Islam as an American, which makes you tremendously unique and probably culturally more similar to folks that are maybe actually coming from a Middle Eastern country who also were born into Islam, but they're not going to see it that way because their view of Islam is going to be slightly different than your Americanized view. It's just fascinating to me. But instead of sitting down and having a conversation about all of that, and what does it mean, and where do we look for parallels? Like you've heard me say this before, my biggest pet peeve is all of this nonsense between Islam and Christianity and Judaism. Like, these are Abraham's religions. He's the father of all of these religions. Why in the world are we fighting with each other? Why are we not uniting to create a world that is El Shalom, that follows the God of peace?
Right.
Why are we making war when everything in the Bible, in the Torah, in the Quran is all about living the way that God intends for us to live, which is a life of peace and love? Now, I know there's people already watching this, like, have you read the Old Testament? Yeah, I mean, I read the Old Testament. Sure, there's plenty of, doom and gloom and fighting in there, but
Oh yeah, there's some scary stuff, and I think in just about every.
right. But my point is, that's not what God calls us to do. Not any of our gods. And so, I mean, it's all the same God, but you know what I'm saying.
Right.
The God that we all look up to, all three religions. So it just makes me sad. There's just so much contrariness in the world.
And
how would it be different? Like, how would it be different if instead of always looking for the negative, we were out there looking for the positive? And that's right. That's what standing in gratitude is about. That's what starting your day with, like, thank you, I'm so blessed, is all about, right? I fell on the stairs and I broke my back, and I was like, thank you so much that I can still walk. I didn't say, oh, why did I break my back? Yeah, I mean, breaking my back sucked, but I was pretty happy that I could still walk. It doesn't matter what's happening in your world. If you flip your view, just like we were talking about at the beginning of this, right? The words on your shirt could be reversed in the image in your, it's the same way in life. You can choose to look at all the negative crap, or you can choose to live grateful that you're still breathing. My mom always said, no matter how bad you have it, there's always somebody that has it worse than you.
That's true.
And so you have to go after what good you can find in a situation. And it just makes me sad that the world doesn't function that way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just one of those people that's like, I feel like I'm easy to be around for the most part, because I had a diverse childhood and adulthood. I was introduced to different cultures very early in life. So it was, I went to a traditional kind of like, I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, right? Which is, at the time, it was predominantly like Midwestern, white, type of environment. But then on stage went to the masjid, and it was like cultures everywhere, different languages. So it was like, okay, I could kind of go between these two worlds, and they're both my world, right? But I see the human race, and I feel like what's misunderstood with me and my thoughts that I sometimes express, that people think that I'm erasing my Blackness by saying human race. And that's not the case. Like, I'm proud of where I come from. I'm proud of my ancestors. I don't go around saying I'm another race. I mean, if there's people at work that thought I was Indian, but I'm like, no, I'm not Indian. I'm not going to deny where I come from. But I also do believe that God created us all as humans. And I feel because I put a lot of emphasis verbally on that, there's a counter thought of like, oh, well, she doesn't want to be Black, or she doesn't I mean, it's I can't control what other people think of me. I can't. And it's exhausting. But, and as you can see, I'm just going all over the place with my color.
I need more color. I'm not, I can't even see
I just think about the human race. We're human beings. We all have feelings. We all have experiences, some of us face abuse, others don't, but at the same time, like, we're all human at the end of the day. And
at the end of the day, we are all souls having a human experience. Not in any book of religion does it say that your soul has a gender. Does it say that your soul has a color? Does it, you're a soul. You're this incredible spiritual being who has been given this amazing opportunity to live in a physical realm for a short amount of time.
Yeah.
What are you doing with that energy? Are you using that energy to generate hatred and negativity and talk smack about people you don't know and carry on like a fool? Or are you funneling that energy to a place where you're creating peace and love and a future that's really going to mean something? I think sometimes when people get passionate and their passion comes out as anger, they don't realize that they do more harm to their cause than good. Where if we approach things slightly different. So this one time, I was working with a politician, and I won't say who he was, but he wasn't one of my favorite people to work with.
Oh boy.
But I was, but people really hated him, and they were protesting. And I'm standing there with his children, and I realize that his kids are afraid. And I'm thinking, how can I stop the fear, stop the momentum, and change the perspective? And so we gave his kids bottles of water, and his kids started handing out bottles of water to these people who were holding these nasty signs saying nasty things about their dad. But instead, they did an act of kindness for those people. And it was big because they got to take their power back. And in many situations that we faced here in our home, we've done that. We've taken our power back by trying to help people. Now, it's been really interesting because some people are like, you offered my husband a cup of coffee when he was broke down. Yeah, I'm not seeing that as a negative.
Did it have a diuretic in it or something?
No, he didn't even take it, but I offered it to him because it was the right thing to do. If I see somebody sitting on the side of the road in front of my house, and it's clear that they're broke down, yes, I'm going to offer you a cup of coffee. I'm going to ask you if I can help you. I prayed with a woman who shot my cat. I mean, came into my yard and shot my cat. And
Wow.
I had a lengthy talk with her about why that was a poor choice, and we prayed together, and I ended up making masks for her and all of her coworkers to wear. Another young couple, they were set up and to try to interfere with something that was happening here, and they didn't know it. Someone told them to go down into our creek, and I went over and I talked to them and I said, hey, we're about to have a wedding here. If you'll just keep it down while the bride and groom are doing their ceremony or whatever. And they said, oh, well, this must be a God thing, because our marriage license is about to expire. Do you know anybody who could perform our wedding? And I said, sure.
Wow.
And I ended up performing their wedding and giving them place to stay for a while until they got back on their feet.
Same.
Another guy came here to cause problems, and I stopped and talked to him. And he told me that he was here to cause problems and what he had intended to do and things. And I ministered to him. I mean, I talked to him about God and about the angels and about things like that. And at the end, he was getting ready to get back in his car and he said, I love you. And I said, I love you too, because, you're a child of God. So, we've been through hell and back in the time that we've moved here, particularly in the last year. I mean, we have been shot at. Our animals have been killed. People protested outside of our house for 71 days after a Black woman and a white man were married here. I mean, my kids have lived through unspeakable things that my children shouldn't have to live through because of bullying. And the really pathetic thing about it is that at the end of the day, I have incredible passion for the people who did these things to us, because it's so very sad to be that angry over, something as simple as who got married here, or whether there are security measures here, or whether graffiti got washed off their. I mean, it's one excuse after another for why they hate me, and none of those excuses make sense. How can you harbor that much anger and that much negativity and put that much? I mean, 71 days, that's a real commitment to being, upset with somebody until a judge tells you that you can't be there anymore.
Yeah.
And all that makes me is sad for them, because it's slightly pathetic, and there's clearly something psychologically wrong with a person who will go to those lengths. Something is missing, something is not right, and it makes me sad.
Mm-hmm. No,
I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's normal behavior, but I don't think that's normal behavior.
I don't think that is.
I think there's something significantly amiss for someone to behave that way.
Now, what do you think about the difference between childhood bullies and adult bullies? What is the difference between those two?
Adult bullies are bigger with better resources. So, and child bullies, I think, they're the adult bullies in the making, but kids are resilient and interesting. They seem to bounce back quicker than adults do. Maybe because their attention span, they grow up and they move on to something else. And I think some of the bullies that we deal with as adults were probably bullies their whole life, and the bullying behavior worked for them. My son and I were talking about it the other day, and he said, Mom, the piece, because I'm always saying, I'm missing something for people to be behaving this way. And my son said to me the other day, he said, the thing that you're missing is when they pushed you, they expected you to fall down. They didn't expect you to push back harder. And in the instance of pushing back harder, they didn't expect me to meet them with love. And that was really something that I learned from my kids. So when my oldest kid was being bullied on the school bus, he started picking his nose and wiping his boogers on the bullies. So they stopped bullying him because they weren't going to get within booger distance. So that was super effective.
I could see him doing that as a little kid, though. I could see little.
So then the other one, the next one, was bullied because he was overweight. And when they would bully him, they'd be like, you're fat. He would go, yes, I am. And he'd start cracking up laughing. And he has always been proud of being large and loud. He's like, yep. I mean, and he's 6'3" and 250 pounds, and he owns it. So he took their power away. They're going to bully him with, so they call me the troll here, the troll of the bridge. So at Halloween, I pass out little troll dolls to the kids that come to the bridge, and I give little troll dolls to visitors. And, I mean, if you're going to be silly, I'm going to, be silly back. But if we just stop, the takeaway from this whole thing for anybody that's watching the video with us, the takeaway is really stop and think about, are you reacting in love or are you reacting in fear? Is this how love behaves or is this how fear behaves? And me and God, we have a lot of conversations, because there are a lot of times I'm like, woo, I need some help flipping this script because I really just want to smack somebody in the head. But that's not the solution, right? What is the solution? This person is in pain or they wouldn't be behaving this way. How do we minister to them and help them? And sometimes it is, sometimes it does mean, hey, I have to file criminal charges against this person because they're not at a place where they're going to listen or they're going to have a conversation. So we file criminal charges against them in hopes that maybe through the criminal system, they'll get the services that they need. And we know that that's not always how things work out either. Sometimes the criminal system makes things worse for an individual, but sometimes that's the only recourse that you have.
So then because what we talked about earlier, like with cyberbullying being so much more in your face versus, not only can you get bullied by somebody that's sitting next to you in class or pushing you into a locker, this can actually follow you home to your cell phone, your computer. And I didn't have that. I grew up with America Online dial-up, and maybe somebody called me ugly in a chat room, but I'm like, never even seen my face, whatever, so, but now you got people have so much access to other people and don't even have to be within 3 feet of them. You could literally be going through online, this invisible wall between us.
And the psycho thing that I've run into is when people will come to our defense online, like when these people are bullying and being crazy, people will come to my defense online and then the bullies will go after them. You don't even know that person. Like that's psycho behavior. You don't know that person.
Right.
But luckily most of these social media programs have a block feature. And that's like my favorite thing in the world. I'm like, I wish people had a real off button. You could just take a remote control and just be like, oh, sorry.
I had to block somebody off the Crayonversation YouTube because they're a troll or something. We uploaded the first episode, which was like a pilot of me and Gio just like winging it. And somebody commented Crayonversation. And I was like, okay, love is more powerful than hate. And they wrote back and they were like, but it's still boring. And I just muted them.
Then don't watch it.
Then don't really watch it. Like, what do you?
Keep scrolling. Like, I just don't, who has the energy and the time for this? Like,
I don't get it. And even like with people who have trolling habits, like there's people that troll they say things just to spark controversy, right?
I just delete those people.
But I've reached the point where I can just scroll and be like, I don't really agree with that. Moving on. I don't have that fire in me to be like, I'm gonna prove you wrong. I'm taking time out of my day to no, I got stuff to do. I got money to make. I got something to write. I'm not gonna spend time doing
you got a real life. You have a real life. Like again, I mean, I've said it before, and I know people are gonna be probably like writing in and all mad, but you're slightly pathetic if all you have to do is sit in front of a computer and be angry. Like, get out of your house and get out into the world. I know that, we've got the coronavirus and COVID is happening, but there is probably something that you could be doing with your time that would be productive and contribute to the world and not make you look like a Looney Tune.
Right. Yeah. But the way it's set up, it's like some people just, they love to argue. And I'm not saying, suppress your opinion. You have a right to express yourself. But then also keep in mind that you can be using your time for you. You know what I mean? Time is precious. It slips. It keeps going. You're not going to change you may change somebody's mind, but the likelihood of it by going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, just for the sake of an audience.
You have a right to express yourself, but you do not have a right to lie, slander, defame.
Right.
You don't have a right to do those things. Those are not protected speech.
No.
Those, and in some instances, those are hate speech. But why is that what you want your legacy to be? Like, you want your legacy to be that you're a psycho? Like, stop being crazy. Right? And we see it all the time. It's not one group of people. It's not one type of person. It's not even one political persuasion. There are, people who are behaving badly on every end of the spectrum.
That's true. And all I want to do is sit and color. As simple as that. I just want to color. I'm 30 something years old and I just want to color. That's
and there's nothing wrong with that.
It's just I don't know, man. It's definitely something. But if there's anybody watching out there who's being bullied, no matter what age, because you mentioned earlier, meeting them with kindness and things like that. How do you keep from being what they may call like a pushover or a punk or weak, or is just having love in your heart just enough?
Well, I think it's really funny because everything that you keep going back to, and I know that this is hard, okay? And it's an artist thing, okay? Somebody said to me long ago when I first started out in the biz, right? She said, Carrie, don't read any of the reviews. She said, because a negative review is no more true than a positive review. It's just someone's opinion on any given day.
Right.
So I didn't read reviews. And likewise, I've come to a place in my life, and part of this, I think I'm about 10 years older than you, right? I think you come to a place where you just don't, so I've been this way most of my life. You just don't care what other people think.
Yeah.
Like, where my bullies went wrong was they assumed I was like them, and the social pressures of the community and living in a small town with people you went to high school with was going to make a difference to me. I didn't go to high school with these people. I could care less what these people think. I got me, I got my family. We got things to do.
Right.
But what you don't get to do is lie about me, slander me, defame me, kill my animals, shoot at me, do criminal acts, right? I draw the line there. So you can, take criminal action against people or civil action against people who do things that are bad to you, but that doesn't mean that you have to give them your personal power by letting them get you to behave a certain way or letting them get in your head. I always call it living rent free in your head.
Yeah, that's what I tell my students.
Don't let anybody live rent free in your head.
Yeah.
I block all my haters. They're all still out there talking amongst themselves, making new and interesting stories up, I'm sure, that keep them entertained. But I'm not going to deal with that. There are legal ramifications for their actions. So I don't have to be a pushover, but I don't have to dwell on their special brand of crazy either.
Right. Because I asked that because I think about I have one student in my acting class who has a speech impediment, and he's younger than the other kids. And so he gets really frustrated when you ask him to say something again, because to him, he thinks you can understand him, but you can't. I think he gets tired of it. And so people snicker, and he'll get so mad, he'll want to throw a shoe at the other kid. And then it's a moment of, okay, stop, take a deep breath, relax. I understand you're frustrated. And yeah, what they're doing is not nice, but just take some time and breathe. And so
What do you say?
I
What
feel
do you
like
say to the
it's
other
important
kids?
for
What do you say to the other kids though? Are you addressing it with the other kids that are being
yeah,
mean to him?
yeah.
So
I call them
what do
out.
you say to them?
I basically go on my spiel of everybody has things that are different about them. There are things that people may pick on you for, and that doesn't make it right. There's going to be somebody older than you and bigger than you that think that they can, get a reaction out of you and pick at you. And they only want to drag you because they see you up. That's the thing. And so even when the older boys pick on them, I have to get on them too. And I have to just have everybody aware everybody's emotionally going to be different. Maturity levels are going to vary in this class. So some people are going to get more mad about something than somebody else may. But it's a mutual understanding of knowing when to stop. And then also kind of keeping yourself, I don't know, finding that happy place within yourself. It's hard because if he's making fun of you, sometimes you might want to throw a shoe at him. I don't know. But
So what if you change that up a little? What if you change that dynamic up a little and said, this is a safe space. This classroom is a safe space. The only way that actors can explore their craft is if other actors create a safe space where we're not judged and where we get to try different things. Because really, I mean, even that day that we met on Randy to the Rescue, right? We created a safe space for each other in a pool of what could have been, I'm not saying it was, but what could have been very catty women. I don't know that they were or they weren't, because what you and I did was clung to each other and kind of created a bubble around us that made it safe for us to do what we needed to do.
Right.
And so if you're telling them, hey guys, this is a safe space, this is your creation, then they have to assume ownership for taking care of each other and protecting each other.
Right.
One of the things that I always think about our situation is how very sad it is that the rest of the world from the outside looking in now views our state, and in particular our county, in a different way because of the way that people here have treated us. And the county and the state could have done things much differently than what they did. I mean, there was some seriously retaliatory behavior for some free speech issues that I had. And instead of handling things that way, they could have really said, hey, this isn't the image we want for our county, and we all need to come together and figure this out. But that's not how they handled it. They, instead encouraged the bad behavior in retaliation against us. And so I think when we're in leadership positions, it's our job to define the parameters of how the people that we are responsible for treat each other. And I think that that's where we're failing as a nation, right? We can't have this conversation without saying maybe the way some of our leaders have behaved, from the very highest echelon down to the smallest county office, set the tone for how people would treat each other. And had our leaders responded and done things differently, perhaps we would be living in a very different world. I never think that you have to change well, I mean, it's one of the things that we talk about in conflict management is separating the people from the problem, right? You don't have to change the person, you just have to simply change the behavior, change the way we view things, and the way that we approach things. I see so much potential for our country and for our world, but people get so stuck in the negative and the nasty and the drama, because it's easier than fixing the things that are going on with them. It's a welcome distraction from whatever. I mean, so the kids that are bullying this guy because of his speech impediment, what do they get out of that? What, does that take away their insecurities about their acting or about, their participation in that class?
Yeah, or even beyond acting class, like where they are probably placed in their grade level.
Right.
There's things, but I've learned that, with these particular students, the student who's done the bullying to the younger kid, he bullied another young girl who came into the program, and she wouldn't say a word when he was around because they rode the same bus together. Well, kid is suspended now for fighting on the bus. And now this little girl's able to fully, and it's sad that it takes somebody getting suspended for her to open up a little bit more. But
well, I was gonna say, doesn't that make you sad as the teacher? Like that, because really, I'm not trying to make you feel bad about this, but he had more power in your classroom to affect the behavior of the other students than you did. And took what could have been an amazing experience away from this little girl who lost time because this other kid decided to bully her. Now, look, that doesn't make him a bad kid. It just means that when we're in these leadership roles, right, have to change the dynamic. You have to empower him to be better and do better, because if you shame him, then he's just going to do more bullying because he's going to do less looking at himself again. It's complex, right? It's
hard
because
I'll try to find the good, like if he did something good that day, because I'm only with them an hour and 30 minutes a day, and then I get the second group of kids that are older, right? And so it's like if he even help somebody out, I make sure before the end of the day, say, hey, I really appreciate you helping that person doing that. Because it's like they're still growing, they're still young, and a lot of times they just think things are funny that aren't necessarily appropriate or that can hurt somebody's feelings, But
right.
I'm like, all right, y'all. But for the most part, I would say just observing them, just when I'm not teaching them a script or something, just how they converse with one another, just sitting and taking time and just listening to how they communicate with each other and with themselves. Because sometimes they'll say some stuff to themselves where I'm like, wow, where did that come from? Okay. Well, I'm going to make note of that and just see what we can do moving forward. But that is definitely something.
We're failing as a country. We're failing, and maybe we're failing throughout the world. But it just makes me sad that there's so much crazy in the world, so much hatred and negativity so COVID's fascinating to me from a sociological perspective, right? Because we chose to move to the middle of nowhere, and we chose to homeschool our children, and I chose to work from home. And now all of a sudden the rest of the world is being asked to do what we restructured our lives to choose to do. And they're unhappy about it. And it's just, I thought people would be like, yes, I get to stay home. I get more time with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the government is paying them to spend time with their kids. And
Right.
they've turned even that, and they turned even that into a negative. Like, I can't teach my children. Like, why can't you teach your children? You've been teaching your child since they were born. You taught them how to be potty trained. You taught them how to eat. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you've been
Well, I
teaching
had
your
a
kids
job
stuff.
interview. I had a job interview online, and I had a tour of the building online through Zoom. So
Right.
it's, I was comfortable. I was able to kind of put my feet where I needed my feet to be in my own space. Like, I mean, it's just, we just gotta learn to adapt. It's not impossible to switch some things around and just be comfortable. Learn to be comfortable. Just learn to
Well,
be.
learn to know that there's a plan, right? God's got a plan.
Mhm.
You don't have to know what it is. You just have to trust him and keep going with it. I mean, he'll lead you to where you're supposed to be. And to not do that, and I know that some of your listeners are probably not very religious, but to me, when we don't trust God and trust God's plan and we try to change and control things, that's like us saying that we know better than God. And I am just not that powerful. I mean, I don't know about you, but I just don't feel like I got one up on, the man who hung the moon and the stars. And
Right.
so I just kind of lean into it, and like like I said, we talk about it. I'm like, whoa, I don't know what your plan is, but it seems a little crazy, but I'll go with it.
Right.
I don't always know, I don't always agree with it, but I trust it. And I trust that there's something bigger than me that's in charge.
That makes sense. That makes sense. How's your artwork looking over there?
Do I
What
look
you?
alike?
Let me see.
I made a little troll.
Ah, nice. Self-portrait, eh?
It's a self-portrait. We did good.
This is what I did, which is what I tend to do with all my Crayonversations. I tend to just make color strokes.
No, it looks like an aura around a person. See the person in the middle? Like, she's got flowing hair, and
Yeah,
you see her? I see a person.
yeah. It all just flows together.
You would love pastels. You should get some pastels and blend.
Ooh, yes.
That would look really pretty with blended pastels.
Yes. Yeah, because with me, when I start coloring, I tend to start with a couple squiggly lines, and then I just kind of base it off from the squiggly lines. So that's usually my start off point. And I just do a couple squiggles, color those in, and then I just let it go within the Crayonversation. That's usually the route.
I love this. I think it's a great idea. And I hope that, if there are kids listening or even adults listening that are struggling with people bullying them and being nasty to them, I hope they remember not to give their personal power over to those people, and
Right.
that you can set boundaries. You can set boundaries in a loving way and not be a pushover and still protect yourself and protect your family without wallowing in as we would say down here in Kentucky, without wallowing in the mud with the pigs.
Right.
There's a thing in the Bible that says, don't cast your pearls to pigs. And so I think you can stand in a place of truth and a place of love where you are ready and accepting for someone to come to you and try to solve a problem, but where you're setting your boundaries at the same time to keep those people from harming you or living rent free in your head. And that's a much more difficult way to live, because it requires an active practice and actively backing up to joy and choosing love and joy and peace over those more negative, darker things that are easier to latch onto. Why is that? Why is it easier to be negative than it is to be positive?
I don't know. I mean, you'll even see it like if you go through Instagram comments on celebrities who, everybody's looking at, and there's always something negative. There's always going to be negativity. Or if you're public with anything, there's always going to be negative. I don't know why it's easier. I don't know why. I wish I did. I really wish I knew.
Is it a cultural thing? Like, I mean, sometimes I think that's a uniquely American thing. And I think some of it has to do with, sarcastic television celebrities and how sometimes negativity is seen as pithy or funny or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you that many of my Nigerian friends just seem so much calmer. And then like they don't ever have anything bad to say. They always choose a more joyful or more collaborative approach. And sometimes I think individualism in America makes us push people away or compete against each other instead of collaborating and creating these beautiful things. I mean, I always tell people the reason that the government wants the racists fighting and wants the men and women fighting and wants gay people versus straight people fighting is because if we're all fighting with each other,
endless.
Well, it's endless, but we're not paying attention to what the government's doing. You need to be holding the government accountable and not infighting with each other because, that person has no power over you. But meanwhile, while you're all fighting with each other, men, women, gay, straight, whatever, the government's off doing whatever it wants to do unchecked because you're distracted. When gay marriage came up, I was like, why? This is a prime time for homosexuals and heterosexuals to get together and tell the government to get the heck out of marriage. Like, why does the government have any say over who you marry at all, whether you're straight or whether you're gay? But instead, the argument was for the government to please regulate us the same way. Like, I don't get it. I struggle with why we don't take a step back to a common sense place that says less government is better, and where we all just try to be nice to each other. And if you can't be nice to each other, then just stay away from each other.
That's the thing. Yeah, I don't know.
Like, I don't know about you, but I don't want to be around people who I don't like. And I don't
I
want to be around people who don't like me. And I certainly don't want to give my money to people who don't like me. Like, no way. I'm going to spend my money with nice people who like me. I'm going to, do things that serve me and my family well.
Right.
And I'm not going to spend a lot of energy on negative nonsense. Like, I just ain't nobody got time for that. Like, get it together, people.
Yeah.
When if your loved one dies while you're on Facebook saying a bunch of negative stuff,
wow,
how was your time better spent, right? How was your time better spent? Was it with that loved one who really needed you, but instead your head's buried in the computer or on the phone or something, trying to bully someone else so that you don't have to deal with the reality of what's going on with your loved one? But you're missing all of these moments that could have been incredible. And that's kind of an extreme, but it's ultimately what happens, because every minute that you spend on social media or that you spend doing something, nasty to someone else is a minute that you're not spending with someone you love or doing something that you love. And it just seems like it takes an exhaustive amount of energy and time. And just, is that how you want to spend your life? What are we going to put on, what does someone like that put on their tombstone?
And see,
here lies the person that hated everyone.
As somebody who works with people, I work with, one of my other jobs is I work in assisted living, but there's also people on hospice. So I'm with, people who are 70 and older who have Alzheimer's or dementia, or who just simply are coming to the end of their lives, and they don't have that social media. They don't.
Right.
They interact with each other. Sometimes they make sense. Sometimes they're in there that they're not making a lot of sense if you're having a conversation with them, but they're confident with it, you know. They may watch movies. They have TVs in their rooms. They have radios. They have a section where there's books, so they can pick up and read a book. So I'm thinking, like, these people in the time of their life right now, they don't have social media. They have the news playing. That's as much as the media as they get. They don't get many. I mean, they do get visitors, but it's scheduled for like immediate family visits, like I think once a week or something like that. I'm there at night, so no one comes when I'm there.
Well, especially with
But
COVID right now.
yeah, yeah. So it's like they're just around each other. And so, and yeah, there's bullies in the senior center. There are bullies, you know, because there's a lot of stuff going on. But I think about the fact that they are in this time of their lives, and me as somebody, when I leave there, it's like, okay, I try my best to leave everything at work and not bring it with me. But then here I am stepping into my apartment, checking my phone, getting on social media, and I'm like, oh, overwhelmed. Okay, a lot of people going back. Okay, wow. Okay, I'm like, maybe I just need to go back to work and sit and play pinochle with these folks and just keep it.
Right.
It's
It's
just so much
exorbitant.
easier.
You know, if I didn't need social media for my work, right, I wouldn't
Yeah.
have it. I would not have social media if it was not a tool I needed for work. It's just shocking to me, the behavior. I've lost a lot of respect for people based on the things that they do, say, and do on social media. There have been a lot of people who I'm like, wow, I really thought that you were someone else. And this is troubling.
Yeah. And I mean, it's as simple as delete. And if you delete someone, okay, you delete them. If they delete you, then they delete you. That means your life is over. You know, it means you
I've deleted.
living. That's for
I've
me.
deleted a lot of people. I've deleted and blocked a lot of people. And like I said, when we started this, I mean, wouldn't it be great if we really had that feature in real life? Like, oh, you're annoying. Beep.
Right? Could I bleep people out from school, like, and just block them? No, I see them every day.
No, and social media is changing how we interact with each other in our everyday lives.
Yeah.
You know, it is changing. I said this on another show I was doing an interview on. There are no more social niceties. People think that you're entitled to their opinion, and they'll just walk up to you and give it to you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know you. I don't care about your opinion. I don't need your approval. And again, it goes back to, I answer to God, and that's it. I don't answer to anybody here. Their opinion of me does not matter. But it's shocking to me how many people will just hand over their personal power to other people and let those other people determine the course of their day.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm at the point where I'm not gonna argue about an opinion. If there's something that's definitely inaccurate, okay, yeah, just be like, no, that's not right. That's not true. Okay, whatever. But I don't have the energy. Number one, I work too many hours. I don't have the energy. Number two,
I mean,
I just don't see it necessary. Maybe that's me being lackadaisical.
I don't even correct people anymore. Like, I used to correct people and be like, that's not true. And they'd be like, liar, hypocrite, whatever. I'm like,
yeah,
it's me. I think I know the truth about me. And now I'm just like, you're going to say whatever you're going to say. And I block them. And then if I need to take legal action, I'll take legal action and let my attorney sort it out, because, I'm not going to have my reputation ruined, but I'm not going to spend time going back and forth with people either. It's not a good use of my time and energy. And it's not good for my kids, frankly. My kids deserve to have my full attention. My children deserve to have a calm, peaceful environment to grow up in. And the things that have happened here over the last year that we've been retaliated against have been unacceptable. My children are not going to live that way. So I am going to set boundaries while also sending you love. Love you, but stay over there. I'll pray for you, but don't come around. And I think that, that's the key, is being okay with you getting healthy in who you are and not giving other people that power. And I'm so sad for children who get bullied online or bullied at school and feel like their only recourse is to take their own life. I mean, I'm an adult with a lot of tools. I'm an adult with a lot of tools in my toolbox. And we've had some dark days because of things that people have said and done, and the impact that has had on my family. And I cannot imagine a child growing up in the world of social media, and how overwhelming that must be when they don't have a lot of tools in their toolbox.
Yeah. I mean, like, even a couple of years ago that there was a little boy that hanged himself, and he was about 7 or 9 or something like that. And I'm like, that's such a young age, like that's just a lot. That's a whole lot.
It is a lot. And it's sad. And the really sad part is, I think that they feel such shame that they often don't come forward to a trusting adult in their life because they're ashamed of what's happening. Yeah. And then you feel bad for the parents, because the parents are like, what did I do wrong? Well, you didn't do anything wrong. This poor kid was dealing with something that was not on our radar, because it's not the world that we grew up in. We are trying to parent and raise children in a world that's very different from the world that we grew up in. And I worry every day that world is getting worse, not better, as we lose the ability to be kind to each other.
Yeah. But what about when, like, say, for example, I've heard this many times with not even necessarily students I teach, but just within, like, walking through the hallway. There'll be somebody getting picked on or something, or they'll be telling their friend, and they're like, did you tell somebody? Yeah, I told so-and-so. I told the principal, they didn't do nothing. Like, then that's discouraging, because sometimes people don't take it seriously. And it may seem like, oh, this person's overly sensitive, or you got to tiptoe around their feelings, but it's like, I'd rather be too cautious than to minimize something that would make someone not be here anymore.
Well, I mean, think about our situation. We went into a fiscal court meeting and talked about the problems that we were having here. And one of the problems that we were having here was that when we called 911, we couldn't get service in a timely manner. And so we were calling the police. We were going to the fiscal court meeting saying these things are happening. And instead of helping us, they retaliated against us further. And then the county judge executive did things to make the situation worse, not better, because we had the audacity to come and ask for help, to question how our tax dollars were being used, to see what could be done for our situation, to define where our property lines were, to say things in a protected speech in a protected setting, and then to be retaliated against as an adult, where we did ask for help. And not only could we not get it, but the powers that be joined in on bullying us. I mean, it was government bullying at that point. Rand Paul wrote a brilliant book called Government Bullying, where he talked about the weaponization of the government against people to bully them and suppress their rights and their constitutional rights, and in our case, our constitutional right to freedom of speech, and being able to you know, talk about things that you should be able to go into a fiscal court meeting and talk about, like tax dollars. I mean, it's just, and I think that it happens in our schools. I think kids do go sometimes to trusted adults. I worked as a teacher. I taught freshman reading, and I stopped eating in the teacher's lounge because there were segments of the teaching population that spoke so badly about the kids. So you had the people who were supposed to protect these kids from bullying, who were saying the same things the bullies were saying, in a teacher's lounge. Not okay. You know, you're the grown up, you're the adult, you're the person in power. You're put into place to resolve these kinds of issues, not to make them worse. And we're failing. We're failing as a society. We're failing our children, and we are failing segments of the population. And the poorer someone is, the less of a voice they're going to have. And that's not appropriate either. You know, we are leaving segments of the population powerless, and it's wrong.
Man.
We see it all the time. I mean, if you've, you know, it's very frustrating.
It is.
The news media has a tremendous amount of power to change the conversation. And they don't either. They focus on the negative. They dwell on the negative. They don't talk about the good things that are happening, the right things that are happening. But that's not what, you know, they've learned. That's not what sells.
Even on YouTube, there was a vlogger named Lovely T, and she does like a lot of gossipy type things, but she also does like serious things, you know, like if there's events, like they had like the Million Man March a year or two ago. She was saying that her juicy, gossipy, spilling all the tea videos have more hits and views than a video that she would do with that was uplifting and showing, you know, this uplifting event gathering all these Black males together and, you know, all different ages. And she went out there, shot her own footage, had people help her shoot it, all this. And she uploaded it and had maybe like 100 and something views or something. But if she's bringing the tea for a celebrity gossip, you know, or like somebody's a downfall or something like that, there's so much more views and so much. Then she's like, it makes me frustrated because it's like I want to do more of the uplifting things, but then these people aren't watching it. But I still continue to try to do them. It's just, I guess, a monetary thing. Like the more views you get, the more money you make. I'm new to that world, but it's, people love to see drama. People like Maury. They like Jerry Springer. I mean, Jerry Springer used to be that, you know, when they used to come on, people watch Jerry Springer for the fights, right?
Yeah. And, you know, he's really a nice man in person.
Yeah, I met him before.
Yeah, me too. I mean, he's really a nice guy, not the kind of guy that you would think would put that kind of show together. Yeah. But he had his own scandal when he was mayor of Cincinnati. And so he learned that that's what sells. Mm-hmm. Maybe we're doing the wrong kind of shows, Layla.
You know,
maybe we need to reshoot this to not be so positive, and you'll get more views.
I can flip it, and that's the thing. Like, even when I do story time, I try to find stories that are positive, that show some diversity, that have kooky little stories within them, you know, things like that. And it's like, there's enough bad on the internet that I want to be somebody that brings something a little lighthearted to it. Even if somebody scrolls it on accident, or they intentionally find it. I want to be that person that's like, hey, this is something positive. There's negativity in the world and there's positivity in the world. I just want to be somebody who pushes the positive narrative. That's just what
That's
I really
right.
want to do. So
I mean,
maybe
and
I have
hopefully that
rose-colored
has,
lenses on, but I see positivity. That's what I choose to see.
you know, I don't have rose-colored glasses. I have seen the worst that the world has to offer. And uh-oh, and you
Wait,
disappeared.
you see me? Wait, hold
I've
on.
seen the worst that the world has to offer, and Layla's gone.
There I
There
am.
she is.
Okay.
I don't have rose-colored glasses. I've seen the worst that the world has to offer. And I choose something different in part because I have experienced such horrible things in my life that the other things that happen in contrast to those are really no big deal, right? And I try to think about, I try to keep life in that perspective that it could always be worse. And so we need to do things to make things better, not to make them darker and worse. That's just silly.
Yeah.
You know, one of my volunteer activities is working with Kentuckians Voice of Crime victims. And so I work with the families of murder victims all of the time. So when people get angry and worked up about stupid things, it's really hard to take them seriously when I've just left a grieving family who found their loved one, you know, in some horrible state, having been murdered for one reason or another. And when you take life in that perspective, there's really nothing that's that big a deal. There's nothing more horrific than the mother whose son is gunned down. There's nothing more horrific than the sister who found her brother tortured to death. I mean,
oh god,
these are the real world problems that people face every single day.
Yeah.
And in comparative to some of the other things that people get upset about out there in the world, it's just, you know, my one friend said he came back from the military and he'd been overseas and he had a particularly difficult military experience. And he came home and a woman was in, I think it was the meat section or the produce section. I can't remember, but she was complaining about the quality of the food in this gigantic supermarket where she could have chosen anything. And he had just come from a place where children were starving to death. And he was like, it was just the craziest thing to one day be in a world where children were dying of starvation and then to walk into this huge supermarket where a woman is complaining that something might not have been as fresh as she wanted or been the cut that she wanted. And I think this happens in America a lot because a lot of Americans don't travel outside of the United States. And so they don't have a big perspective on what is happening out in the rest of the world and how incredibly ignorant they look to the rest of the world. And I say ignorant in the true sense of the word, that they just don't know because they haven't been exposed to it or they haven't experienced it. But the world is so much broader than your little holler or your little corner or what's happening in your little HOA or what's happening in your little apartment building. And so one of the things that happens with these children that get bullied and struggle with it is because the world seems so small to them. And their whole world is that classroom. Their whole world is that family unit. They don't have a broader experience. And so without that broader experience, you're looking at their whole world. And when their whole world seems to be against them, that's when we run into these kids doing bad things to themselves because they're so lost and the world seems so dark. And everywhere they turn, the news media is talking about darkness. Social media is talking about darkness. the people in their small little world are talking about darkness and are hopeless. You know, I mean, it's just heartbreaking to me as a parent to know that a child suffers that way and to know that their parents are suffering because they didn't realize this was happening, probably because the child was trying to protect them from what they felt like they were seeing. And it's just such a sad dynamic, but because so many people are so self-centered and so stuck on wanting to get that pithy comment on social media or wanting to be, you know, the 5 minutes of fame and their
want to go viral. Yeah.
They want to go viral and they miss what damage they might be doing to a child they don't even know. That they don't even know. And it's, you know, the issues that happened here at our house started because I asked a woman to remove pictures of my minor son and to remove pictures of our home. She had been messaging my minor son, unbeknownst to me, inviting him outside, taking pictures of him and putting them on Facebook. And when I found them, I found pictures of my home. My home. She was in our barn. She was in our house. She was in our smokehouse. And when she was asked to remove those pictures, she threw a fit and got the rest of the community to begin bullying us over my having the audacity to ask that photos of my home and my child be removed. Well, think about how that made my child feel. That these people were now attacking his family because his mother tried to protect him. You know, he had some very dark days that we had to work through about people's behavior who didn't even know him, who didn't know our family, and to this day, who continue to lie about us and do bad things to our family because I was trying to protect my child. It's just not okay, and it's not acceptable in any world. But those are the ramifications that these children who are being bullied struggle with. Because in many cases with social media might be what expanded their world a little bit. And then they find themselves targeted.
Okay.
We gotta do better, Layla. We gotta do better. Change the world.
I want change for the world. I do.
Change it one, you know, change it one crayon, how do you say it? Crayonversation at a time?
Crayonversation at a time.
Yeah, change the world one at a time.
One Getting down to the basics. Coloring is not only a relaxing activity, it's creative. But if you think about how little kids, when they're at their desk and they're coloring at art time, they converse, they have conversations, they express themselves how they do. Why can't adults do that as well? Yeah.
I love it. I think it's great. I'm going to be marked for a long time from your show.
Well, anything coming up? Mark, yeah. You have anything coming up, Carrie, or any quarantine specials coming up or anything?
So I'm working on one book and I'm editing another book, and I'm giving a whole big series of interviews right now. So I have another interview coming up on Monday as we continue to take our issues through the legal system, because that was the only recourse that was left to us. So I mean, I'll update you on that, but you know, I keep praying for the people who have treated us so poorly, and I will continue to pray for them because they need it. There's something broken to make people be that angry. So I'm going to keep praying for them, and I ask your viewers to keep praying for them and pray for us, of course. And I always pray that you and I get a chance to work together again in the future, because it is so much fun to work with you.
Yes.
I enjoy it, and it has been just an absolute delight to watch you grow into your art. and
Thank
to
you.
become this amazing, hardworking woman with all of these side hustles that let her do her art and be creative. I love it. I love watching you in Layla's world and seeing who you are becoming and growing to be. And I am your biggest fan. So come and visit again. I had a blast when you came to my house and stayed and did some R&R for a week or so. And I loved taking care of you and fixing you food and letting you
Yes.
sleep. And it came at a good time for us because we were having lots of problems here then. And so to see
Yeah.
you come and just be like, oh, it's so beautiful and it's so wonderful at a time when I was like, ugh, I'm just,
You needed
I
something
was
new to
very,
enter into the mix. You needed some newness.
I did. And it was great to have you here. So I hope you'll come again and
Thank you.
bring that lovely man with you so I can meet him in person. But I love you guys and I love what you're doing. This is a great program and thanks for the opportunity to come on and
Thank you.
maybe we made the world a little brighter for somebody else who's struggling right now
Yeah.
with being bullied or with social media or whatever. Just be kind to each other. Just respect that we are all souls. We don't have a sex. We don't have a color. We don't. That's all human constructs. That's of this world.
Right.
And this world is fleeting, right? So we have to do things that protect our souls, that make this have meaning, that builds love and leaves an amazing future for all of these little kids who are having such a different experience than what we grew up with.
Right. That's what it is.
I
But
love
thank you
you.
so much. Mwah.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you,
me. Now I got black marker on my face.
Carrie. Awesome. Well, keep your art alive, keep your markers busy, and keep
I will.
expressing yourself. Keep expressing
Thanks.
yourself.
I love you, doll. Take
I
care.
love you too. This will be available shortly. So it'll be up
Cool.
online.
Thanks.
Love
Love.
you.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.
All right, so that was our episode 4 of Crayonversations with Carrie Cox. Thank you for tuning in. And if you would like to be a guest, feel free to hit us up on Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, Crayonversations. And I'm Layla Hameen. I hope you have a wonderful day and just keep on coloring. All right, bye.